Man, Mitch, no Joel Embiid, no victory.
Nah,
0 0-2 without the big fella, man. It's crazy, right?
it is crazy. It is what it is.
It is what it is. And we'll talk about what it is and what does it mean and give some results of a recap of what happened last night next on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Keith Pompey. I'm the co-host of Locked On 76ers. Right next to me is my man John Mitchell.
Yo, yo.
Yo. The other co-host, he got me saying yo. The other co-host of Locked On 76ers. But we got a lot to talk to y'all about today. So basically, the 76ers lost to the New Orleans Pelicans 124 to 114. The Sixers found out or announced that Joel Embiid wasn't going to play 30 minutes before the game. With that, now there's a little bug going around the team. Assistant coach Bobby Jackson wasn't at the arena, back at the hotel because he's sick too. Jaden Springer has been away for the team for the last couple games, maybe 3-4 games because of an illness. And last night, Mitch, without Joel, it was like they never had a chance. I mean, they tried. Do you know they played 3 different centers in the first quarter? 3
That's
in the
crazy.
first quarter, and they couldn't do anything. I mean, this team was just, I ain't gonna say bombing threes. They were just going in the lane like, move, get out the way, get out the way.
Right.
Dunking on them. I mean, it was a rough display for the Sixers early on.
It was not a it just goes to show you the value of Embiid and how teams, when he gets to those 10, 12, 15 games where he's not there on a regular basis, it just, during the regular season, it just shows you the team. I mean, that is the formula, if you're going to beat them and possibly even knock them out early when Joel's not playing, just attack. And that's what New Orleans did. And Zion 8. It wasn't A2F last night. It was A270. It was A276s last night. It was just that's going to be the MO on those nights when Joel. It's not going to require, when he's not there. It's not even going to require a whole lot of coaching expertise. The blueprint is there. Attack them. They become
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah, no, I said, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, they become a center. They become completely centerless, and they become a donut team in the middle.
Yeah, they were. I mean, another thing that doomed the Sixers was they had like 21 turnovers, leading to 31 Pelican points. Now the thing is, the Pelicans ended up turning the ball over a lot too, because this was the craziest thing. And we'll talk more about it, but it was like the Pelicans emptied, like they gave these dudes, they was emptying the bench like one by one, like, right? So they would get like the standing ovation, the crowd was clapping, they come out, they come up minutes, seconds later, whatever, next dude come out. And then all of a sudden the Sixers kept their starters in. And they was just like coming back. And so what happened is they had to bring the starters back in. And, at that point, it takes you a couple minutes to get back into the flow. Because, you're like, oh, man, like I'm no longer in game mode, right? But it was bad, man. It was bad. Like in the first quarter, we talked about it. They shot 77 38.8% in the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
And then they were up 24.60 to 36 with 4 minutes left in intermission. And then they built a commanding 29-point cushion in the third quarter, right?
Yep.
But the Sixers, like I said, they pulled within 8 points with 1:47 left, after lost momentum, but taking their starters out too soon. But when we talk about Zion, he had 33 points on 11 for 12 shooting. Dude, I don't know where the miss came at, because at first it was like 10 for 10, then it was 11 for 11, right? And then that's what it said on the in-game box score.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get to the lot, or when you get to the media room, it's kind of like, 11 for 12. I don't know where the one came at. I don't know where the one came, right?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because you were at the game, and I'm watching it, and I don't recall seeing the miss.
Nah. And then not only was he dominant, so he made 11 to 12 free throws too. Now, so he had 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals. Like 12 of his points came in the second quarter. Now, the crazy, because he only had 4 points at the end of the first quarter. But this is the crazy thing about it. Zion Williamson scored 33 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists, right? And for his career, the 4 games he played against the Sixers, his average is 33 points, right? His average is 8.7 rebounds. His average is 5.7 or 5.8 assists, right? So you look at it, you're like, dang, this dude is dogging him. Now, I mean, it was like he always dogs him. Like, I mean, it was just a normal game.
Yeah.
Now you look at Valanciunas, right? This guy had 17 points, but he made 8 of 9 shots. So between the two, they only missed 2 shots. It was ridiculous, Mitch. It was ridiculous.
And again, and they weren't shooting jumpers either. They were at or near the rim. And again, with that's the MO, that's the model, that's the template. When Joel's not there, you're decent, and that's why you keep hoping. And last night we did get a chance to see, we had a Mo Bamba sighting, but you want to see, but he's so frail. I mean, you look at him and you watch him out there with those guys, and as soon as he was on the court, he got into early foul trouble, and whoever he was guarding was calling for the ball. Valanciunas, and I'll never be able to get his name right.
Valanciunas.
Yeah. I got him like I call him like he's a fruit growing up in the Mediterranean or something. Like change his name around, But there was just no defensive presence at the rim, and they became aware of it instantly. And it made it it wasn't really an X and O intensive effort needed to figure out how to attack them.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I mean, you look at it. It wasn't that at all. It was simple. Now, the one thing about it is like it was weird, like because Marcus Morris got his second start. He started the last time the Sixers played, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without Embiid. So he got the start. But then all of a sudden he got a quick hook, and then they brought Mo Bamba in, right?
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, then they bring Morris back in, but they keep Mo Bamba in there. So they bring Morris in at a power forward. So then you're looking at it. Then all of a sudden, Mo Bamba picks up his second foul, and they bring in Paul Reed. And to be honest with you, Paul Reed was doing okay, like better than both of them for a little bit.
He's looked good this year.
Yeah, and then they took
him
out.
His role when he has to play up, that's when it becomes more problematic for him.
But he looked okay. But then you looked at it, but Valanciunas wasn't, it wasn't that he was stopping them. I mean, like from when he did shoot, but he just wasn't getting the opportunities when he was in there for a little bit. And then they take him out, and then they had Nicholas Batum as a small ball center, right? So it was like, Wow. I mean, but so they played like four different centers. Four different people played center in the first half, but
Yeah,
three in the first 9 minutes. Three
yeah,
different centers in the first 9 minutes. It was crazy. It
yeah.
was
Well,
crazy.
Keith, teams roll these kind of games out where, okay, not only were you not were you without your best player, but you were also without your best effort. The Sixers were very sloppy. They were sloppy defensively. They were passing guys off and just allowing the cruise to the basket. Um, they got out rebounded last. They just didn't play well. It looks like, the game started. They started 20 minutes after the game. They started
Yeah.
playing basketball 20 minutes and after the game started, after the tip. And I think that Nick Nurse recognized that. I mean, you can see him, he was reaching and searching for, what can I do? What combinations can I do to stop the bleed? And they just, early on, there was no combination to stop that bleeding. When you fall behind by 29 in an NBA game, it's rare. When a team comes back from 29, that game usually leads Sports Center, and there was nothing that was going to bring them back from that deficit last night. And they just that's one of those games where coaches see it and it's like, hey man, and kudos to the 76ers because they did rally. They did rally late in the game with the Pelicans reserves on the floor, which was kind of funny because it forced New Orleans to go back to their starters. But that game was just kind of, you never felt that the 76ers, just like the Minnesota game, you never felt that the 76ers really had a chance and that they could.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I mean, it was one of those. It was over. Like it was. Yeah, it was over quick, fast, and
Yeah.
I mean, shucks, it was over the moment you realized Joel Embiid wasn't playing. I hate to say it, but
Yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
felt like. You know what I mean? That's what it
yeah,
felt like.
yeah.
You know. Yeah, I want to talk to y'all about game time. Right, game time. Now, game time is there's been times where I've been wanting to get tickets for people for my family, and especially my daughter. Have her go to a game with me or not with me, but just go to the game. And it's like last minute, you want to go, you don't want to spend too much money, you don't want to do this, you don't, it's just a lot of things. You don't want the hassle. And then guess what? I realized that they got game time. I realized that game time is the best place. Because see, with game time, you don't have to worry about when you're buying tickets, to your next big event. Game time is is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, right? So what it does is it has last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buying tickets for every kind of event in your area. You get views from all seats in the venue. How many times you go there and they say, "Hey, we got this great seat, this and that," and then you show up and you're like, "Nah, man, like I got a column in front of me. I can't see." Nah, you don't have to worry about that at game time. What you do is when you go to game time, it's like you click on the seat you want and it gives you the view of the seat. You can't beat that. So I'm just telling y'all, you just go take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. I'm telling y'all, you need to do it today. It's a great deal and you won't regret it. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
And you won't get that seat behind the column because that is, I don't even know why they still build those tickets. We've all sat in them before.
About to curse somebody out too. Like,
You like,
I know, right? I know. I know. So look, I want to talk to y'all before we get back into the next segment about, this 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On has launched the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for your 24/7 covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On Plus, our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Now, Mitch, we talked about, the game. We talked about certain things. Nick Batum left in the third quarter. He hyperextended his index finger. The last time he did it, it was against the Boston Celtics, the first time they played him. And the momentum was he was amped up, this and that. So he basically injures it. He runs to the locker room, gets it taped up. This is like late in the second quarter. And then next thing you know, he's back on the court and playing. This time it happened in the third. Now, this time they were getting boat raced at this time. Mm-hmm. And he basically is kind of like one of those things where, he didn't come back. And I asked him in post game, and I said, was it a matter of, was it worse, or was it just a matter of the outcome the way it was? And he said, no, sometimes you got to use common sense like that, right? You know what I mean? But be smart. He said you got to be smart about it. But he expects to play tomorrow on Friday. Now he's going to get it X-rayed. He's going to do this, but everything seems fine. Mm-hmm. He is. I don't know, man. He's a pro's pro, but to me, when you lose a guy like him, and I'm not talking about this game because the game we just talked about was over at that point.
Right.
He's a big, important piece for them moving forward, heading into Boston. Now, if he wants to sit out the Wizards game, if he wants to sit out the Hawks game or whatever, I understand. But they need him not only to play, but they need him to play well.
They do.
Elite teams. Yeah,
they do, especially since Boston has really, since they lost to the 76ers, they have looked really, really good. Well, actually, since beating the 76ers, the last time we saw them, they've continued to roll. And about his injury, I don't know if you had what kind of angle you had the first time he suffered. I think he jammed it into the rim or the backboard, if I'm not mistaken, the first time he suffered that. It looked like it was far worse when it happened. But I know last night I can kind of understand if they don't bring him back, saying, this is a game that we're going to lose in all likelihood. Whatever. Let's err on the side of caution, and use common sense, as he said, and hope that we have a full contingent in Boston. Because that's what you want to do now. I mean, Boston's got the best record in the conference, perhaps in the league, if I'm not mistaken. And that's this will be the third. I can't remember a season when they have played Boston 3 times, so early in the regular season as will be the case here. So again, it's a measuring stick game, and you don't want you want to go there and possibly snatch a win against Boston. And to have the full complement is a necessity. Who knows if Kelly Oubre will be back in time. I still sense that they're going to be very cautious with Kelly Oubre on bringing him back. But Boston's playing really well right now, and you do want to have your full contingency of players available to you when you go against them.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Kelly, from what I'm the Nick Nurse wants to see what he's going to do today. Today he's supposed to be a full participant at practice. They're hoping to see that. Okay. They're hoping to see if they could do that. So we'll see. Now, the one thing about the whole Kelly Oubre thing is, but if he's not able to go, then they got a couple of days. If they feel like he's not able to go, then you got I don't know if they're going to practice on Saturday, but you look at Sunday, they can practice on Sunday, like Monday, Tuesday, and then take the train down to DC for Wednesday. So that gives them 3 to 4 days of practice with Kelly. Right. In that instance, right? So that's, right then and there, that's something that's a bonus if he doesn't play today.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, when we look at this team, and we talked about Nick Batum. He only had one shot attempt, and he played 14 minutes, 7 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrese Maxey had game high 33 points. He had 13 of 25 shot attempts.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the guys who really struggled in my eyes of their starters, the guys who you depend on were Tobias Harris and DeAnthony Melton. And when I'm talking about struggling, what I mean by Tobias had 5 turnovers. He was a turnover waiting to happen at one point. And I know Maxey had 5 turnovers and Melton did. But in the second quarter at times, Tobias was, like just getting stripped left and right. But and then DeAnthony Melton shot 5 for 14, right? And he was jacking threes. Now he shot 40% from three, but he shot a lot. I mean, he shot like 10 of those joints, but he couldn't make anything else. He ended up with 17 points. Tobias had 12 on 5 for 10. But when you look at it, between those three, what did they have? They had 13 turnovers, 13 of the 21. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I think that's why he was. Nick Nurse was tinkering with the lineup because there was no consistency. There was they just played sloppily.
Yeah,
and I mean, speaking about Tobias has cooled off lately. And I mean, if you look at his last, what do you have? He had 12 last night. He had 8 versus the Lakers. He wasn't really required to do anything, and he had 16 in a nice win at OKC, and against Minnesota he had 15. So he's cooling off a little bit right through here, and he needs to become more aggressive. And you touched on that earlier, in a podcast a few days ago. That is he becoming? Is the ball sticking a little bit more? Are they playing a little bit more of the 2-man game? Tobias has to be. He has to continue to be aggressive. You've put. There's no longer a James Harden there, and you're still whatever the Sixers' big 3 is. I mean, we know it's a big 2, but that third guy really needs to be Tobias, especially as long as Kelly Oubre is out. And he's kind of fallen off a little bit lately, and he has to come get the ball. He can't be expecting the ball if he's got to make himself available. And he was doing that much better earlier in the season than he's done it, say, over the last 2 weeks now.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what it is. I think, like we talked about yesterday, they're going more. What was happening is Maxey is being told to be more aggressive for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, I think he was looking more to kick it out to Tobias or find Tobias.
Yeah.
And now it's like, he's being told.
Yeah. You can see
Take care of yourself first, and then do other things, right? Do other things. So, we'll see, and we'll see if they can get it together. I think that we talked about before, but I think when Kelly gets back, it's going to be a little bit more balanced because it's going to be tougher to defend certain people, and they're all going to eat. But I want to talk real quick, man. I want to talk about FanDuel. So as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel/LockedOn to kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel. Go there, FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So, Mitch, when we look at this, overall, you look at this loss, is it concerning to you? Because, we talked about it. We didn't really mention it as much, but the other team shot 77.8%. The Pelicans shot 77.8% against them. When they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves without Embiid, the Timberwolves shot 60% against them in the first quarter. Right? Now, is that concerning to you?
It is somewhat, because the losses that stand out to us right now are those losses without Embiid, and that if teams are going to attack you early, and they are, you take a guy out of the lineup who's the leading scorer in the league, a guy who is the MVP. And he's a big man in the league. Where there are very few teams now that are big man centric, and they've just got to. In those games, they know they're going to be without Joel. Granted, they found out 30 minutes before the game started, that Joel wasn't going to be there.
I mean, but they had to have an idea because the brother wasn't that shoot around. You know what I'm saying? Like, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? They had to have some type.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So it wasn't a mystery to them. They kept it under wraps until right before game time. But because after the first quarter, they did play, and they really rallied at the end of the game, and they weren't significantly outscored. And I think in the fourth quarter they scored almost 40 points last night, if I'm not mistaken.
Listen, man, what they did is, and here's the thing: after the first quarter, they outscored them 90-85. Now, again, a lot of it was the team took the foot off the gas,
right?
But they won just about every quarter besides that first quarter.
Yeah, but the damage is done. Every team makes a run in the NBA, and that's kind of cliche, but they made that run when those starters came out. And kudos to the 76ers, for continuing to play. It just wasn't that typical NBA game you see where it's like, okay, it's mailed in. But again, I never felt that the Sixers would threaten them last night. But it's a bit concerning because you just know that it's a very simple blueprint and teams are going to follow it. When Joel is out and you're getting 10, 12 more of those games at least where he's just not going to be there. Teams know what to do. Just attack them, come out aggressive early on, and get them flustered, get them playing out of rhythm. It's almost like a boxing match where you hit somebody early in the first round and you got a flash knockdown. The 76ers are susceptible to the same thing in basketball parlance. They get hit early without having Joel's presence out there. And with Joel, you can control tempo. Teams can't run. If you can park him down there, you can get into that two-man game, and you have more options. When those options aren't available, and you're taking 4 shots and shots further away from the rim, that often turns into fast breaks, and teams are going to utilize that against them. So, but I'm concerned. But you just hope that this is a very healthy season for Joel. So you don't have to worry about this as much because it's clear early on, you take him out of the lineup and the 76ers, they come down 2 notches. And they become short and you're forced to play small ball.
Well, the problem is, so here's the problem with this. Like last year, it was a portion of the season where the Sixers played better when Joel was off the floor. Like they just did early in the season, it was. Like they had a tough time with him, right? Early with him. And then they got it together. They all start playing well together. And then in the playoffs, I mean, people forget they closed out the Brooklyn Nets and won their first playoff game against Boston without Joel.
I remember that.
It's kind of sort of that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. And what happened is, like, we got to be honest. James Harden was the one who was stepping up. And whenever Joel was out, Harden stepped up. Tobias got more shots. I mean, stuff like that. But right now, somebody has to step up. I mean, they just have to step up. And, I get it. I know Maxey had 33 points and all this and that, but a lot of that came when the other team had their bench out and was rested, right?
Right.
Uh, but yeah, that's what happened. They got to step up. You got to get big play. Now, one thing is they did go with Paul Reed as the starter in those games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that has to be the thing because that center position is getting dominated.
Yeah.
There. And there's nothing against them. Marcus is getting points and stuff. But Paul Reed, when he comes in the game, stuff happens.
Right.
Think about it. He kind of shored some things up. They played better a little bit in the second quarter this past game. The other game, they pulled within 5 points, like when they lost. So those are the things that I'm talking about that they need.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and the one thing we can't factor out, I think Oubre could be that guy because I think he is a slithery scorer, and I think that he's a guy who, this is a guy who averaged 20 points per game last year, and granted he's averaging 16 this year, but he was very effective, and when he was on the floor, they were much better. They've been a much better team this season, so Get Kelly Oubre back in that lineup, and I think some of the scoring laws will end.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But look, we want to thank y'all for listening. We want to thank y'all for taking the time out your morning to join us to talk about 76ers. We want you guys to know that you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts at and on YouTube. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts at and on YouTube. And we want to make sure that you guys have a great day. We want to get that out there. Say that. Have a great day. This is Thursday. You got one more day to work on the week, unless you're me. but yeah, but
for you.
I know, right? So, but yeah, tomorrow we'll have an update on Kelly Oubre. We'll have some other things. We'll preview tomorrow's night game against the Boston Celtics, and but we want to make sure that you guys have a blessed day, and again, thank you for listening. Peace.
Thanks for joining us, y'all. Appreciate you.